Welcome to Comics Bazaar, the channel of comics commentary and arcana. This video features the Uncanny X-Men number 268, cover dated late September 1990. And this is an iconic cover by Jim Lee, inked by Scott Williams, featuring Captain America, Black Widow, and Wolverine, of course. And the cover caption reads, "Wolverine, Captain America, Black Widow together again for the first time." And that is a hint towards a big revelation in the interior of this comic regarding the very first and a very unexpected first meeting between Wolverine and Captain America. Now, in terms of art techniques on this cover, you've got the craft techniques of the period, including this wonderful color hold in the background, the blue color hold or cyan color hold for Hightown, Madripoor, because that is the setting of the cover, that's the background. And I like the way that Lee includes the rooftops and TV aerials from Lowtown here immediately behind the trio here in the center of the cover. And also little details like including some steps here. So they are in fact at the docks in this particular scene, and the packing crate there, and the cracks in the concrete of the steps and the side of the side wall of the steps there as well. The anatomy on the characters is excellent. This is Lee putting absolutely everything he has at the time into his pencils. Great command of anatomy, great poses by the characters conveying the heroism that we expect, the grandeur and heroism of superheroes, and also a fantastic hunched over pose on Wolverine. Great spotting of blacks on the cover too, with the light source coming here from the right hand side, and even the detail of casting the shadow from the side of Wolverine's mask onto Captain America's torso. Really great attention to detail. One little error though, one teeny tiny error, which is here in terms of the perspective of Wolverine's foot going back down below the level of the step. You can see Captain America's foot here just behind Wolverine's. There's a little color error there as well. This is Wolverine's boot and it should be colored brown. There's Captain America's foot there behind him, but somehow or other Wolverine's foot is going below the level of the step. So that's my only criticism to this cover. You could call it artistic license, because otherwise this is pretty much a perfect cover. There is no way that any comics reader looking at the racks in 1990 could look at this cover and not pick up this particular comic. One last thing to note before moving into the story itself is the corner box, the top left corner box, an original drawing there of Wolverine by Jim Lee too. So just putting everything into this particular issue. Let's open it up to the splash page. And here we go. Look at that, a beautiful image of Captain America leaping towards us with perfect foreshortening of the hands all the way down to his feet there in the distance. And I always like this particular shot where you have either claws or gun barrels, or in this case the blades of swords pointing at a character, and Captain America is leaping into action there. But here's the big twist. It is the time setting for this particular portion of the story. There are two timelines in this 23-page issue. Madripoor in the late summer of 1941. So that's the first surprise for readers. It's worth reading out the third-person narration here, Claremont's narration, because we're going to learn something interesting about the characterization of Captain America here in the late summer of 1941. And remember, in the late summer of 1941, it's before America enters World War II, after the bombing of Pearl Harbor by the Japanese in December 1941, and then Hitler's decision to declare war on the USA. In times to come, he'll make moves like this without a second thought. Fear balanced by a cool awareness of his own capabilities and a lightning quick, uncannily accurate assessment of his foes. But that's then, this is now, and the thought bubbling treacherously across the base of Steve Rogers' skull as he launches himself into the face of what for anyone else would be certain death is, how could he have been dunce enough to willingly volunteer to take on the mantle of the star-spangled Sentinel of Liberty, Captain America. So Captain America, created in 1940 by Joe Simon and Jack Kirby, and this story set then at the beginning of his career as a golden age superhero. So rather like Batman in Frank Miller and David Mazzucchelli's Batman Year One. This is a Captain America who doesn't have decades of experience behind him and who's learning, so to speak, on the job. But what a beautiful image again by Jim Lee. And look, he's going to top it on the double page spread to come. Look at that. That is another amazing image. And Jim Lee showing off in some regards. Now we're getting to see all of those back muscles on Captain America. That's difficult to do. It's less known anatomy than, you know, the big pectoral chest muscles and the six pack over the stomach that every, you know, 10-year-old can draw. Much more difficult to do a reverse shot on a superhero with all those back muscles knitting together really effectively, or at least persuasively. And just look at all the work on this double page spread as Captain America is leaping from off panel into this cadre of hand ninjas, as it turns out, using his shield here to break even their swords. Really, really excellent work. So then back to the narrative captions to explain things a little bit. But then he's in the middle of the fray. So we're opening the story, Claremont's opening the story, and not only in the summer of 1941, but in medias res, in the middle of things. And there's no time for thought or fear, only action. So then we get into Captain America's thoughts with the thought balloons. A whole gang of cutthroats, costumed like something out of a Fu Manchu movie serial. So a reference to the time of this particular story, the 1940s, early 40s, after that Russian who's over here. Odds should work in my favor. He thinks I can hit whomever I please. So perfect grammar in Captain America's thought balloons, courtesy of Chris Claremont. Well, they'll have to be careful about KOing one of their... And I like the way that the own of his thoughts transitions into the ow of being kicked in the side by this particular ninja. Who is this fool? So Captain America has never fought ninjas prior to this. And the hand here throughout this issue speak in Japanese. So they're in these particular arrows that always indicates in Marvel Comics that a character is speaking in a language other than English. And the hand ninja says he fights well, especially for a gaijin. He even possesses knowledge of our martial arts, but he's no match for the hand. So he's clawed on his back there, and he's about to be beheaded, it would seem. And so he is in quite the tough position. But here we have the title of the story, Madripoor Knights, and the creative team. Chris Claremont, writer, Jim Lee, penciler, Scott Williams, inker, Glynis Oliver, colorist, Tom Orzechowski, letterer. So this is the first issue of Jim Lee being the new regular penciler on the title. And this is going to prove famous in terms of the work that he and Claremont, Williams, Oliver, and Orzechowski achieve in 1990 and 1991. Such success that makes possible the launch of a second X-Men title, Adjectiveless X-Men, in 1991. So let's see what's going to happen to Captain America. Is he going to have his head chopped off? No. But there's the very unexpected arrival and a big surprise for readers back in 1990 of none other than Logan. And he says to the hand, "Hey there, one chance, Jenin, walk away." So the hand infer that whoever he is knows them, and Logan launches straight into action. Now he's dressed in civilian clothes, has no superhero costume of his own at this time. Great anchor image of him here launching in to attack the hand ninjas, and then Captain America getting up from the ground and assisting Logan too. And we've got great banter between these two characters in Chris Claremont's dialogue. So Captain America says, "Hope you don't mind some help, stranger." And Logan replies, "Plenty to go around, but I wasn't the one in need of it." True enough, admits Captain America. And much appreciated, he says. "Never fought anyone like these people before. Combat style takes some getting used to. I'll know better next time." I really like that from Claremont. He is characterizing Steve Rogers here as learning on the job, but really professional about it. And he's going to acquire experience and skills over the coming decade that will prove his strength in future times. And Logan responds laconically, "Good for you, always providing you get it next time." So I really like the dry, laconic, tough guy dialogue that Claremont writes for Logan in this particular issue, and throughout, of course, Claremont's run, but most particularly in the latter years of his original run on the title. So then the aftermath of the fight. "Gone," says Captain America. "Yup, Jenin got no stomach for losing," says Wolverine. So after all that action, what does he do? He lights up a cigar. That's hilarious. The bodies of their dead dissolving. Tidy little beggars, I'll give him that. So that was something that was established long ago by Frank Miller in his original run on Daredevil regarding the hand. And Captain America extends his hand here, no pun intended, to the mystery man who's about to pull up the brim of his hat. "You talk like you know them," says the captain. "Jenin, I believe you said." "Common assassins," explains Logan, "a demon ninja clan called the Hand." Captain America recognizes that they're Japanese, and Logan fills in, "by birth and heritage, but they work for whoever pays them, so they're mercenaries. Thanks for the help. I'm Captain America." And a great response here by Logan as he pulls up the brim of the hat. "Do tell, I like the suit. Just the thing for playing it sly and sneaky," he says with irony. "That isn't my style. I'm supposed to be a symbol," says the captain. "Never met one of those before. Me, I'm just a guy. Name's Logan. Welcome to Lowtown, Madripoor." What a great opening sequence. So well done. Like, you can imagine reading this for the first time in 1990. This is top tier superhero comics from the period. There is no parody of the genre. It's straight on. It is really excellent work from the summer of 1990. And one other thing to note here about the storytelling before I turn the page is all of these sequences set in 1941 come with this heavy black line border. But then when we switch, as you'll see here when I turn the page, to 49 years later, i.e. the present of 1990, you get your normal thin black line borders and the return of the white gutters in between panels. So that is how the different time frames are distinguished. The panel borders, thick black or thin with normal white gutters. So here we've got in the present of 1990, it's the Hand again, but this time it's the Black Widow who's going up against them, and she is disgusted with herself. Brilliant Widow. Spiders are supposed to set traps, not charge headlong into them. Time to swallow my Russian pride, she thinks, and turn to the better part of valor. But just as she's about to escape, she's caught in the chains of this Hand ninja, and she thinks that's it. Teach me to go on a caper without backup, she thinks. Funny, maybe even fitting for things to end here like this, almost where they began. "You want me, Jenin," she says boldly. "Be prepared to pay the price." She's got her widow's sting there ready to roll. And then snicked in the background behind the Hand, and they recognize that sound. "Ancestors know," says the lead one. And who is it? It's our trio from Uncanny X-Men 258. It is Jubilee, Psylocke, and Wolverine. And Jubilee, of course, using her mutant powers there to set off some fireworks to distract the ninjas, and Psylocke then to attack them using her ninja skills. But here's the one who made the snick sound, wearing his own suit in the present of 1990. It's Wolverine. "Madripoor's my turf," he says. "You aren't welcome," as he sets about killing some of those Hand. So the present day time frame sequence begins also in medias res, and just as Captain America got a rescue from Logan in 1941, so too does his in time to come Avengers compatriot Black Widow get a rescue from Wolverine, with Jubilee and Psylocke along for the ride as well. So nice little paralleling going on there between these two different timelines separated by almost 50 years, and in surprisingly short order, it's the aftermath. And just as in 1941, you can see the garb of the Hand ninjas there where their bodies are dissolving, and now it is time to get an explanation from the Black Widow regarding what she's doing there. But we don't get it until later because she has been scratched by the hand and some poison has entered her bloodstream. So she says to Wolverine here, "Fancy meeting you here, Wolverine. Although, all things considered, especially under the circumstances, I probably shouldn't be surprised. Saving me from death and worse, it appears to be something of a habit," just as she goes unconscious there. But Wolverine's there to grab her, and he uses her first name, not a code name now, Natasha. He says, "So we're going to have established that there is a long history between these two characters that goes back to 1941. But first, we have a little scene here, a very, very cool scene, almost like something out of Casablanca, out of the 1940 John Huston movie starring Humphrey Bogart. Saraf's, today known as the Princess Bar. So for any, super fans of Wolverine, they'll know that Claremont established in the first 10 issues of the Wolverine solo series, 1988 solo series, that Wolverine is part owner of the Princess Bar in the present. But we're going to meet who the original owner of the Princess Bar was when it was known as Saraf's 50 years earlier. And then we get in the narrative captions, the place to go in Lowtown if you want to cut a deal and not worry about getting your throat cut in the bargain, at least not on the premises. So just like the bar in Casablanca, Rick's Cafe or Rick's Bar in Casablanca, there is a kind of truce here between people who would otherwise be enemies outside of the bar. It's a kind of like a sanctuary bar, something along those lines. But Logan bumps into this tuxedo-suited character here. "Excuse me, you spill your drink, I'm soaked." "Excuse me all to heck," says Logan. "Apologize to," who is it? Baron Strucker. So it's Baron Wolfgang von Strucker, the founder of Hydra, as it would turn out in later years in the Marvel continuity. "He was in my way," says Logan. "This is a respectable establishment," says his Nazi party companion. "Till they let you goose-steppers in," says Logan. "You will beg Herr Baron's pardon," this guy says, "and then you will leave." "Suppose I don't," says Logan. Great use, it's very subtle of a scream tone there, indicating the shadow cast by the brim of Logan's hat there. And this guy says, "Then I will most happily trash you within an inch of your misbegotten." Look at Strucker just smiling there in the background. "This is my place, gentlemen," says somebody out of sight. And it turns out to be Saraf. So we're going to learn who she is, the owner of the bar. And look at the way that they're all looking down. And so now we move to the page turn. But before that, I just want to note one other thing about the art in this issue. Just look at the detail there of the empty bottle. The vodka has been spilled from the bottle, some of it anyway. And you can see the distortion of this guy's lower jaw in the round glass of the bottle. Really great attention to detail there by Jim Lee. Clearly really doing his absolute best job here and finding little ways to show it on the page too, as well as the period costume suits that the characters are wearing. It's really, really excellent work. And here's Saraf. So she's a little person and she has a big attitude. She says, "I decide who stays and goes. Takes all sorts to make a good saloon, Herr Kreutzmann." So that's the name of this guy. And it isn't always the clothes that brand a man as class or riffraff as she gets up on the table. "That's telling him, darling," says Logan. But she tells him abruptly, "Shut your mouth, I'll deal with you later." And look at the way that von Strucker's standing to attention here. He says to Saraf that it was all a regrettable misunderstanding, madame. Though wronged, that is no excuse for a true Junker to forget his manners. That's a Teutonic knight, to forget his manners or the proprieties of being a guest. It will not happen again. So Baron von Strucker, very much his characterization here by Claremont very much parallels the way that Claremont would characterize Dr. Doom, Victor Von Doom, also somebody with polished manners and a sense of courtesy and honor, despite having villainous type plans and character. And then Saraf, she's charmed by von Strucker, and then she grabs Logan. Going somewhere, shorty. That's so funny from Claremont in the dialogue. Back to my table, he asks. By rights, I should toss you into the street on your knucklehead keister. Now, very recently, I pointed out the first time that Larry Hama used that term knucklehead, had Logan use it of himself, and I wondered whether it was something that was invented by Hama. But the particular issue of Wolverine dated from 1991. So my thinking now is that Hama, as part of his research for coming on as regular writer of Wolverine the Solo series with issue 31 and Mark Silvestri on the art, had done a little bit of research and picked up the phrase and liked it from this particular issue of Uncanny X-Men. That's what I'm thinking anyway. So she says to Logan, you know the rules, like there's not to be any fighting in Saraf's bar. He protests, it wasn't my fault. And she isn't buying it. She says, please, whatever you have planned, take it outside. I won't have my place wrecked or my customers put at risk for you or anyone. So he smiles there and says, yes, ma'am. And now we get a trope of Jim Lee's, which is these slender, full horizontal panels that can come anywhere on a page, at the top, in the middle, but very often at the end for wrapping up a scene and giving us a very wide shot, like a cinematic wide shot of Saraf walking away and Logan walking towards a table with his companions from earlier. So he says to the guys, here's drinks, fellas. Sorry for the wait. And it's Steve Rogers. I don't drink, he says. So turn the page. And Logan responds with, why am I not surprised? But I knew that. Not even the slightest residual taint of alcohol on your scent. Mineral water for you. Vodka for Major Petrovich. So now we learn the identity of the Russian. I'm Ivan, please. And beers for yours truly. And then this is another interesting touch of characterization. Logan gives a Jewish Hebrew toast, l'chaim. And of course, that is following on from his encounter with the two Nazis, von Strucker and Kreutzmann. And very subtle stuff here coming out in Claremont's dialogue for Logan in terms of his thinking about, what was going on in Nazi Germany at the time. Just really subtly done. And then Rogers makes the point, you bumped into those Germans deliberately. Don't miss a trick, Cap, says Logan in response. You're both after the big fella, Strucker. This way I've tagged his scent so I can follow his trail anywhere on the island. And this is another nice little bit where Steve Rogers, with his one eyebrow raised, says that sounds like something, and after a pause, an animal would do. And then we get this close-up on Logan with the shadow cast over his eyes by the brim of his hat. Human beings, an animal, bub, though most animals probably wouldn't take that as much of a compliment. And Steve Rogers says, I meant no offence, none taken. What's your interest in this, Mr. Logan? Asked Captain America. Awfully convenient the way you came to our rescue. Nothing convenient about it, says Logan as he wipes the foam from his mouth. My interest, Captain, is in the hand. Figured any enemy of theirs is a potential friend of mine. Piers Day and Strucker have an interest in common. So that's why Logan was there. That's why he was trailing the hand. And now Major Petrovich says, that information, comrades, I believe I can provide. And of course, we have to imagine that Major Petrovich is KGB in this era. That information. So this is kind of like international cooperation between a functionary of the Soviet Union, an agent of the USA, and a Secret Service man of Canada, and at that time, and the British Commonwealth. It is probably why those assassins were trying to kill me, says Petrovich. Baron Strucker, one of the Reich's top operatives reporting to Hitler himself, has abducted a young girl left in my charge, Natasha Alyanovna Romanov. And that's the connection. That's the moment to make the transition to the present again, and the Black Widow recovering from the poison. And as she wakes up, she senses someone's close by. She was about to strike with her widow's bites, but it's Wolverine, and he's there smoking away in her room and waiting for her to recover. and he asks her, how do you feel? Better than you look, I'll wager, because in this time period, Logan, having been tortured and crucified by the Reavers in the outback, is still recovering from that beating he took, and his healing factor isn't what it once was. And he says here, in conjunction with all of that, but I just like the choice of quotation here, movie illusion by Claremont. Like Indy said, so Indiana Jones, ain't the years that take the toll, it's the mileage. And that's a reference to the recent Indiana Jones film, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, which came out in 1989. And now Natasha hugs him and says, little uncle, seriously, are you all right? Cut that out. You know Russian ain't my strong suit, says Wolverine. I'm fine, really. But she thinks to herself, and you lie as easily as always, but says aloud, it's good to see you again, Logan. And outside the bedroom, there is peeking in Jubilee, and Psylocke is enjoying an iced drink out on this particular veranda or porch. And Jubilee, who is jealous of any other females getting any time with Logan, asks, is it like my imagination, or is every old buddy Wolvie's got in the whole world like some incredibly fabulously gorgeous babe? It's funny stuff. And Psylocke says, Jubilee, it's impolite to pry. Somebody's got to look out for him, retorts Jubilee, and she thinks, and I sure as heck don't trust it to be you, Ms. Mind-reading so-called ex-assassin. But she says aloud, and since some of us aren't telepaths, Psylocke, we got to do it the old-fashioned way. What's this little uncle? She keeps calling him. Oh, so terribly precious, don't you think? Makes me barf. So jealous Jubilee there. And then when Black Widow's up, Natasha's up and back in her repaired Black Widow suit, putting on her widow's bites on her wrist. We get the explanation, but also a reference to some old Daredevil comics not so long ago. Old friend, I thought Daredevil and I had dealt with a hand once and for all. And here we have Barb Harris's typically incorrect editorial footnote here. In the Justly Classic Daredevil numbers 185 to 190, it's 187 to 190, Bob Harris. But Wolverine says, of all people, Princess, you should know better than to make that sort of blanket assumption, especially about the hand. But if their involvement was a surprise, what brought you here? The Strucker twins, says Natasha, Andrea and Andreas. Status surveillance as a favor for Nick Fury. So she's there, not as an Avenger, but as an operative for S.H.I.E.L.D., and specifically Nick Fury. And Claremont gets Jim Lee to include some more comic business with Jubilee's characterization, the characterization of her jealousy here, where she's just playing around with her little fireworks there, and also taking a look at the breasts of Psylocke, and then looking down her own shirt and seeing not much there. She is only 13. And just a look of disgust on her face, knowing that there's no way she can compete for Logan's attention in comparison to those fabulously gorgeous babes, Black Widow and Psylocke. But just really, really funny stuff. And Claremont, taking the time to include that characterization of a young teenage girl like Jubilee, it is so well thought out, and it adds just rich layers to this story. What's going on with the adults. So Black Widow says the Struckers are on Madripoor for a meeting with a Japanese businessman named Matsuo Tsurayaba. So of course they know who he is from issues 256 and 57. He's the one who took Betsy, took Elizabeth Braddock from from her emergence on the other side of the Siege Perilous amnesiac, and transformed her body and soul, at least tried to transform her soul, corrupt her soul so that she would become the master assassin of the hand, but failed, as told in those issues of Uncanny X-Men. You can find reviews of those on the channel. And Wolverine fills in and he says, Fenris and the young Jonan talk about an unholy alliance. Interesting choice of words, says Natasha thoughtfully. Logan, how long since we... So here we're going to see Natasha in the past, nigh on 50 years, princess. And also even the way that he addresses her as princess is a hint in terms of Natasha's family tree. Always hinted at, but never confirmed, that she is the legitimate heir of Tsar Nicholas of Russia, who was murdered by the communists in I'm trying to remember whether it was 1917 or 1918. I think 1917. So Jubilee here says, her, that old? She thinks to herself rather, uh-oh, or she thinks, no way, not a chance, totally impossible. They're talking like ancient history. So that's another interesting thing for readers. So it puts into the mind of Marvel fans at the time that there are a number of Marvel characters now. Wolverine is one of them now. The Scarlet Widow. The Black Widow is another. Steve Rogers, Captain America, and Nick Fury, all named or shown in this issue. These long-lived characters who have been there from the very beginning, like the prehistory of the Marvel universe, before the Fantastic Four, which is usually taken to be the beginning of the Marvel universe, before the Fantastic Four went up in their rocket in 1961, in reality, like in publishing time, but that's always taken to be the beginning of the Marvel universe. But there are these characters that existed and that had adventures prior to all of that. So Wolverine says, Black Widow asks Wolverine, do you think after all this time to try again? I'd rather know for sure, so let's find out, says Wolverine with a look of real determination on his face. And then we're back to 1941, like the time before when they tried it the first time. And this is a great page here, such great detail, nice top-down shot of the limousine, or is it a, let me think here, it's a limousine arriving towards or on the street, and in its headlights you just see this figure here, and you see the shadow cast as well, cutting in to the pool of light cast by the car's headlights. And it's Logan, of course. Up ahead, some fool blocks the road. It's the crazy Amerikaner from the bar. Our orders are to let nothing stop us. He sealed his own fate. Funny thing, bub, says Wolverine as he leaps towards the windshield of the car. I was thinking pretty much the same about you. And for the record, I'm Canadian and proud of it, as the car goes careering into these trash cans. But what a great shot of him crashing through the windshield of the car and kicking the driver in the jaw. Just really, really good stuff. A great page by Jim Lee and Scott Williams. And something I want to say before moving on about the art here, and it really comes out maybe in these panels and also in the inking on this particular anchor image here, is that this is Scott Williams inking before his inking style becomes codified and becomes very slick and sharp. Here we have a very organic line. His style hasn't crystallized just yet, and I like this organic line of Scott Williams from the earliest collaboration, like this early collaboration of his and Jim Lee in art. It looks really well, and you get, like, as I said, like a less sharper line and less plastic kind of hatching and cross hatching going on. It's much more organic, and it's very, very pleasing, and it makes for more mobile facial expressions and cartooning in panels like this, for example, these three panels. So let's continue with the story here. So Captain America is there also on scene to attack what would I call them, like the Nazis who are there as part of the security detail for this particular car. Also Major Petrovich as well, and he's shooting away. So there's killing going on, it's implied here. So Petrovich shooting this guy in the back, but that is after he's shot into the back of the car saying, "Allied swine, Your schoolboy heroics are wasted. If the Reich cannot have the child, no one can. And Wolverine in the back of the car shouts, "Down, girl." So Petrovich shoots this guy in the back. He's concerned for Natasha. "I swore to keep you safe." And it looks like Logan has been killed. This wasn't even his fight, he says. He joined up with us, almost it seemed for the fun of it, yet he shielded your body with his own. And Natasha, young Natasha, says, "He told me to be brave." Ivan Petrovich, "Never, my little Tsarina, have I known you to be anything else. Back to Saraf's as he told us," he asks Captain America. "Too risky," says Captain America. Now, in the present, Captain America is the leader of the Avengers, and he's a master strategist, and of course all of that based on his experience. But here he makes a mistake. He says, "Too risky. First place they'll look for us. Best bet, I'd say," let's turn the page, "is the American consulate." Now that will prove to be a mistake. So there they are, knocking on the door of the consulate. In they come, and the consular main man is Jeffrey Sydenham, US consul. "I must say," he says to the captain, "when I got the alert telex from Secretary Hull about you, I couldn't believe my eyes. I'll be truly sorry to have to report that your mission was a failure," because who's there in the American consulate except for Baron von Strucker and a load of Nazis, and the hand there in the background as well. Now remember, this is before the Third Reich declaring war on the USA, and Sydenham here saying, well, he'll explain things over here in this particular panel. But we have a switch in the middle of the page between 1941 and 1990, and in the present, Black Widow is shaking down this particular thug here for information on where Fenris are, and their meeting, and the planned meeting with Matsuo Tsurayaba. So she's threatening this guy. Wolverine here comically suggesting that if she drops him, he'll catch him with his extruded adamantium claws. So the guy wisely says, or yells, I'll tell you anything you want to know. All you got to do is ask." So Wolverine, music to my ears. Fenris and Tsurayaba, where's their meet and when? But then we're back to 1941. Captain America rightly calls the consul a traitor, tells him he's a disgrace to the Foreign Service, and the guy explains himself. He says, "All depends on your point of view, doesn't it? I happen to consider myself a patriot, Captain, who believes the true destiny of the United States is to join with Germany in an Aryan hegemony that will eradicate the scourge of Bolshevism from the globe, and thereby make the earth fit for those who deserve to rule it. America will have the New World, the Third Reich, the Old, Europe and Africa, and Japan gets Asia and the Western Pacific. It's only fitting that the key instrument in the destruction of the communist evil should be forged from one who bears the name of the imperial dynasty the Reds so ruthlessly tried to murder during their bloody revolution." So that's the big plan here in 1941, is to turn Natasha into the master assassin of the hand. So this Jonan says, "Take up the sacred sword, Natasha Romanoff." But then we switch to the present, and the apparent meeting of Tsurayaba and Fenris here, and we have in disguise Psylocke and Black Widow entering the yacht as party girls. And in the background here, more comedy, we've got Jubilee disguised as a lowly servant bringing some dim sum onto the yacht for the party, and thinking to herself here, most guys, they just got no class whatsoever, as everybody's jaws dropping regarding how gorgeous Psylocke and Black Widow are. And she thinks to herself, shake the right bit of booty under their noses. And we get this nice little sound effect here, or kind of like cartoon signposting of her wiggling her own behind, wiggle, wiggle, wiggle like that. That's funny stuff. So really good comic characterization of Jubilee throughout this issue and her jealousy. And then Wolverine arrives smoking a cigarette, and then the Jubilee sets off her fireworks on the yacht. Wolverine saying here, Jubilee's fireworks took out the yacht's engine engines and internal power. Guards are up to us. So everybody's in costume now, including Black Widow and Psylocke. And Psylocke asks here with some humor, "Pardon my asking, O fearless leader, but this is supposed to be a problem." So it's no problem at all for these expert fighters. And then we're back to 1941 again, and the ceremonies continue, and it seems to involve Natasha killing Major Petrovich, which she doesn't want to do, but she's under some form of mind control by the Master Jonan, and then he is attacked and has his head chopped off by Logan. "What's the matter, fellas? Looks like you're seeing a ghost." So Captain America says, "But we saw you shot. I got better," he says. Classic Claremont line. And he cuts the ropes that are binding them. So now we're going to get another wonderful page. So we've got everybody getting their weapons. The captain there has his shield again. Logan's got that samurai sword. Major Petrovich has found himself a machine gun. And we get this tight close-up on them all. And Wolverine says, or rather, Petrovich says, "Neither they, the Han, nor Strucker's Death's Head stormtroopers are about to let us leave without a fight." And here, laconically, Wolverine says, "Their choice, their funeral." Another classic Claremontism. And so they go into action. Really nice shot there of Captain America's shield spinning into those hand ninjas. Great art on this page. And then the fight is over. Now there's 23 pages of story in this issue, but I wish it could have been like another couple of pages longer, so we could have really got some great action shots there of Captain America, Logan and Petrovich taking out the Hand. But the time moves forward to they've gotten picked up by Saraf in a car there, and they're racing towards an airfield. Had this all set up, would have gotten clean away, spared everyone a whole world of grief. If you'd only done as you were flaming told, says Wolverine to Captain America and Petrovich, and in particular Captain America, because he told them to go to Saraf's bar, and that's where the car would have been. "Give it a rest, Logan," says Saraf. "You're loving every minute." "Natasha's a tough kid," Saraf says Logan, "but some things no kid should have to see." And Natasha's in the back of the car too. "You told me to be brave, little uncle. I fought the wizard as hard as I could. Did fine, princess," he says. "Made me proud." So now they're saying their farewells. Petrovich is bringing Natasha, young Natasha, onto the plane, and Captain America bidding farewell to Logan. He says here, "We work pretty well together, mister. A shame to break up so potential a team, so potent a team. Appreciate the thought, Cap," says Wolverine, "but I work alone." And this is hilarious. "Don't need a sidekick," as they shake hands. And Captain says, "Actually," as he coughs, "ahem, I meant as my, well, never mind. Perhaps it's for the best." So could you imagine if Logan had been Captain America's sidekick during the Golden Age rather than Bucky? In any case, he tells Logan, "Take care. I hope we meet again. Anything's possible. Count on it, little uncle," says Captain America. And Logan doesn't like that form of address from Steve Rogers. And then the present, and this is our last page of the story. So it turns out it wasn't Fenris or Tsuriaba. They were ringers. They were doppelgangers. And it was all a charade. "Must have set up this diversion the moment we showed our faces," says Logan, "to keep us busy while they staged the real meet somewhere else. Probably watching the show right now, laughing themselves silly at how completely and easily they played us for chumps." By the way, that's a great top-down angle shot on our four superheroes here in the foreground, and the tied-up ringers there in the background. Really nice use of perspective. Another great anchor image here of Psylocke using her telepathic powers to scan the crew and the imposters. No information regarding the true location of Fenris and Tsuriaba, but it turns out they're watching them from the mainland and have them on tape even as well. "Can't win them all, kiddo," says Logan to Jubilee. "Happens even to the best of us. Means from now on, we're that much more careful. Make as sure as we can this never happens again." So here is Fenris and Tsuriaba toasting their upcoming victory, their current victory, the first of many. But the very next time, so obviously Claremont was setting something up here with Fenris and Soryaba allying themselves, but the next time that we would see them is after Claremont had left the X-Men books. We would see them next in Jim Lee's X-Men, Adjectiveless X-Men, issue number 4. Okay, and next up, Rogue in issue 269. So no letters in this particular issue. All pages, all 23 pages given over to a tour de force art job, and just fantastic story as well by Claremont, revealing, and it would have been a major surprise for readers back in 1990, the first meeting of Logan and Captain America, and that Logan was an operative in 1941 at the beginning of World War II, just in advance of America's entry into the war. Really, really interesting implication of many, many adventures that Logan must have had in the past, and that he had forgotten by virtue of the tinkering with his mind and memories in later years. So I do hope that you enjoyed this review and commentary on Uncanny X-Men 268. Let me know your thoughts on this issue in the comments section to the video. If you enjoyed my review and commentary, please like the video on YouTube. It really does help the channel. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content like this.